Cancer. The word alone instills fear, but cervical cancer is one of the more preventable cancers. All you have to do is be your own health advocate. We'll tell you how. I'm Rachel Bozing. Welcome to My County, the show that explores services and programs provided to you by Los Angeles County. Joining me today is Dr. Rita Oregon from the Department of OBGYN, Olive View UCLA Medical Center. Welcome.
Thank you.
You know, we're talking about cervical cancer and being your own health advocate around it because it is one of the more preventable cancers. Set the stage for me.
Basically, my job at Olive View is to follow up on abnormal pap smears and to help women prevent cervical cancer. And so one of the recommendations that I give to my patients is to get your routine screening. Be sure you get your pap smears. Don't skip pap smears. Working women and busy moms tend to skip their own care in order to care for their children's. And the second part of being your own health advocate is, especially for those moms, is to get their young daughters and young children vaccinated against human papillomavirus.
Let's talk about, well, cervical cancer. The numbers in 2005, about 12,000 women were diagnosed with cervical cancer, and that's across the U.S. And so those are the latest numbers. Right. But HPV, which you just brought into play, the human papillomavirus, if you have the high-risk kind, that can be an indicator that there's something wrong, that there's an abnormal pap and you need to check that. Dimensionalize that for us. Talk to us about what that exactly means.
Correct. So having an abnormal pap smear, number one,
sure,
or being diagnosed with the human papillomavirus is not an indication that you have cancer right then and there.
Right.
And so what we do at that point is we bring people back for more frequent follow-up, and we perform what's called colposcopy, which is to look at the cervix carefully and take biopsies of any abnormal appearing cells to diagnose the degree of the infection and the degree of disease.
Okay, so what we're talking about is there's cervical cancer up here, there's HPV, and just to set the stage about HPV, about 50% of people in their lifetime will have HPV or have kind of had a glancing brush with the virus somehow, right?
That's correct, even higher potentially.
Right,
yeah.
And by the time women are 50, 4 out of 5 women will have had some sort of interaction with the virus as well.
Correct.
So obviously, if you're someone who is sexually active, the HPV virus is something that we want to look out for, and we can do that with these pap smears, right?
Correct.
And with the HPV virus, what you were saying is that there's a low risk and a high risk, and the high risk is the one that can possibly indicate you need to have further follow-up around the cancer, right?
Yes.
And are there symptoms for that?
No symptoms. No symptoms. Unfortunately, human papillomavirus is really one of the viruses that is transmissible, easily transmissible, and can be carried in the system for years and years without anybody having a clue that they have it, unless they go in for their routine screening.
Okay, so we're saying right now, get routine screenings, but what are some other things that you can do to protect yourself?
Sure. Condom use, definitely condom use has been associated with, it's not 100% prevention of anything by no means, but much fewer incidents of cervical cancer in regular condom users. Quitting tobacco, less cigarette smoking is also associated with less progression of the human papillomavirus and better outcomes if you do have cervical cancer, if you quit smoking. Having fewer sexual partners, limiting the number of sexual partners, and doing the best you can to try and prevent any sexually transmissible diseases.
Let's talk about the vaccine because you mentioned it earlier and it's fairly controversial. And yes, let's talk about your stance and why it probably makes sense that we should be vaccinating our children from 9 to 20-something.
26, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's really an amazing thing that in 2006 the FDA approved the use of Gardasil, which is one of the cervical cancer HPV vaccines. And that is amazing because it's one of the few anti-cancer vaccines. And that's really, really a huge step towards preventing cervical cancer in women, promoting women's health. And so it is controversial because it has us thinking about human papillomavirus, a sexually transmitted disease, in girls ages 9 and up. But
and we don't want to think about that at 9. We don't want to have that discussion.
Correct. The point of vaccinating a girl at age 9 and above is to vaccinate her against the human papillomavirus before she comes in contact with it. And given the fact that we know statistically that greater than 50% of sexually active people in their lives will have a brush with HPV virus, it makes sense to vaccinate young girls.
So what you're asking people to do is kind of separate the idea that, oh, this is something that's associated with sex, thinking at 9, you know, and I'm giving it to her at 9 years old, and just say, if you had the opportunity to ward off or do something to prevent cancer, whatever kind it is later on, wouldn't you take that?
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Okay. And what is next for you in terms of kind of promoting this? You want people to have their pap smears, although that has changed a little bit, right, in terms of what the recommendations are.
Correct. In November of 2009, ACOG, which is one of our governing bodies, put out recommendations that for women who have had normal pap smears in the last 10 years, that they can potentially have a longer screening interval. So maybe 2 years can pass between your pap smears. You
advocate, though, getting a pap smear every year, just to be on the safe side.
I do, but in certain populations, you can extend your screening intervals and it would be okay. I would definitely recommend that women speak to their physicians about, am I a candidate to have this extended screening? Really don't just go ahead and choose to do that on your own, especially women who have had abnormal pap smears or HPV disease in the past.
Thanks so much, Dr. Rita. And tell us, there are websites where people can get information?
There's excellent information on the CDC website about human papillomavirus and about all gynecologic cancers. And so I really recommend checking out the CDC website.
Thanks, Dr. Oregon. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And please join us next time right here on My County and learn about more programs and services brought to you by Los Angeles County. See you next time.